say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be. You need another chance to be who you want to be.
Hello everyone and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo. It's Thursday afternoon and I gotta tell you something. Oh my gosh, do we have a great show. I say it every week, but I am telling you, and I say that every week, I am telling you, this show, the book is entitled Authentic Negotiating. By the way, the title is great, but in my opinion, it's not great enough. This is one of those books. Let me tell you what this book is. This is one of those books that I read this book from cover to cover, like I do every book. And I went, oh, I don't think this is a show. I think Corey wrote this book for me. That's what he did. He wrote this book for me because he's challenging me. He was like going, Jay, you know what? You got to do this. You got to do your CDE thing. I'm just telling you right now. And oh, by the way, you better check in with some CPR. Yeah, okay, you know what? We'll get to those acronyms later. I am just telling you right now that this book, Authentic Negotiating, Clarity, Detachment, and Equilibrium, the 3 keys to the negotiating success and how to achieve them, is freaking awesome. Okay? It is a game changer. More than that, it is a life changer. I don't care if you are in business, not in business. You are going to be faced with negotiating something, even if it means negotiating with yourself. Okay? And there is a better way to do that. And this book tells you how. It is brilliant. I love it. And we're going to talk to Corey Kupfer because it's just a wow book. But let's do what we do every week, right? What do I do every week? I check in with you in the 4 areas of your life. You know, I believe that we are 4-part people. We are physical people, we are mental people, we're emotional people, and we're spiritual people, right? And those 4 areas, right? I always say that the 4 areas are like the legs of a chair, right? If they're coming up and they're even and they're at the right height, the chair is a perfect place to sit. Okay, but if they're uneven, it's hard to sit in an uneven chair, and if it's too low, it's really hard to sit too. So let's check in. Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, 5 being average. How are you physically today, everybody? So how are you? You know, physically, you're not feeling good, right? Are you right? So what do you got to do? Okay, why? You know, maybe you're saying, you know what, I've been slacking in the gym. You know, okay, well, then let's get restarted. Or you go, you know, my eating habits haven't been great. It's Labor Day weekend. I know I'm going to be a sloth and I'm going to eat horribly. Maybe that's what you're doing. Whatever it may be, you know what can you do to change it, right? That's the whole point. The whole point is, okay, whatever you're doing right now, change it. You know, what do you got to do? What's the discipline? What do you have to negotiate with yourself to say, I got to change the way I'm eating, or I've got to change the things that I'm doing? Corey's going to talk about later on. He's going to talk about, you know, why a little bit. I want to ask him this question. You know, why, you know, do people fail their New Year's resolutions? He actually talks about that in the book, and it's because they don't negotiate well with themselves and what they're doing. And we're going to talk about that as well. So, how are you going to scale of 1 to 10 physically? You got that number? Good. All right. So, scale of 1 to 10 mentally, right? What are you feeding your brain? What are you engaged in? Mentally, what are you learning? What's your knowledge base? What are the things that you're doing to grow both your right brain and your left brain? And you go, Jay, it's one brain. Now, see, your right brain's a little bit more creative. So we need to feed that side as well as the left brain, which is our logical side. So we need to kind of feed both sides. So what are you doing? And how's that going with you trying to feed your side's brain? You get a little lazy, not reading stuff. You're just consuming things, maybe mindless TV. You're not reading, you're not consuming information. Well, you're consuming this podcast. That's a plus. So give yourself at least a point there for consuming the podcast. But what are you doing to enhance your mental capacities in your brain, right? A scale of 1 to 10, right? 1's miserable, 10's outstanding, 5's average. How are you doing there, right? My friend Russell Murray from back home in Nebraska said to me he was a 10 because he just was in a mentally good place. And I was like, awesome, you're a 10. You know, it's hard to go up from there, but good for you. All right, so you got 2 numbers, physical, mental. How about emotionally? And when I say emotionally, what do I mean? Well, we talk about your emotional quotient, the ability to control your emotions. Oh, man. Talk about the ability to control your emotions. Sometimes you just got to detach and have a little equilibrium. That's just a teaser because Corey's going to talk about that later, by the way. Because I'm going to tell you something. And when it comes to authentic negotiating, and he's going to talk about this, and this is really true, it's being able to keep calm in the midst of a storm. And that's one of the most powerful tools that you can have in your arsenal. And so some of this is intentional, but Corey's going to actually help us really deal with our emotions. But how are you dealing with them? Do the little things tick you off? Are you able to control it? Are you able to intentionally say, you know what, I've got this. I don't care what they do to me. I've got this, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to change that, right? to make that happen for you, right? Whatever that number is. One's being miserable, 10's 10, whatever that number is. What are you going to do to improve yourself emotionally? All right, we have 3 numbers. Now the last one's spiritual. And you know what? Spiritual comes in, people go, well, what is that? Well, it's what we can't explain. But yet we know that there's something deep within our soul that touches us and that gets us centered, gets us refocused. Corey talked about in the book, he talks about prayer and meditation. And, so it could be God. It could be nature. It could be that you just meditate. It could be karma. It could be a number of things that you believe in that brings you back to center, keeps yourself calm, and it keeps you at that place where, you can't explain it, but you know it's real. And that's the spiritual realm, right? And so if it's God, how's that relationship going for you? And if it's nature, how's that going for you? If you're just meditating, how's meditation working out for you, right? So those are your 4 areas on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And you should have 4 numbers. And those 4 numbers are like the legs of a chair, as I always say, right? And if the chair's uneven, it's hard to deal with. And if the chair is even, it's great. But if it's too low, that's also hard to deal with too. So the whole idea is bring your numbers up and bring them up together so that you can have a really comfortable place and be in the best possible place that you can be. And remember, the goal here is not, if you're a 3, not to get to a 10. The goal is if you're a 3, go to a 4, right? What do you got to do to get to a 4? And if you're an 8, how do you get to an 8.5? That's the goals here. So don't get too worried about the goals. Get yourself in the right context, and so that you understand that it's not about getting all the way to the top. It's just about getting to the next level. Because if you're going in the right direction and you're moving in a new direction, which is what the show is about, you know what? You're getting there, and that's the point of the show. So I gotta introduce you though to my guest. My guest, his name is Corey Kupfer. He's an expert strategist. He is a deal maker. He is a business consultant with more than 30 years of professional negotiating experience as a successful entrepreneur and attorney. He is the founder and president of Authentic Enterprises and the Authentic Business Academy. Corey is dedicated to inspiring authenticity in business through speaking, training, and consulting on topics such as authentic negotiating. Imagine that. Authentic deal making, building authentic business relationships, and authentic conversations about the difference. Corey holds his JD from New York University Law School and runs his own Manhattan-based firm, Kupfer and Associates PLLC, where he has applied his passion for negotiating and deal making to advance clients' business interests. He is a passionate advocate and leader in the entrepreneurial space. He is a member of the New York chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization since 2008 and a board member from 2010 to 2015. Here's the other thing. He, like myself, is a professional member of the National Speakers Association, and you know how I feel about my colleagues and my members, professional members of the NSA, the National Speakers Association. I tell you, everybody who's listening to the show, no matter where you're at, if somebody is a professional member of the National Speakers Association, it's because they're really good. And Corey is better than really good. Corey is great. So if he is a fit for whatever you're doing, right, whether it's your conference or training or whatever it is, you need to get Corey Kupfer to there right away because he's a great speaker. I've heard him. He's absolutely outstanding. And also what he has to say is meaningful and it means something. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show Corey Kupfer. Corey, welcome to A New Direction.
It's great to be with you, Jay.
So, by the way, Corey Kupfer and his book, Authentic Negotiating, is brought to you by, who else? Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. They partner with business owners when it's time to sell their business. Internationally known, when it's time to sell your business, contact the professionals at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more by going to inline.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors, no matter where you're at in the world. If you're looking to find the best expert to sell or buy a home, just go to Linda Craft and her team. They can help you. It's Linda Craft and team. Just go to lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. Find out why they're the legends of customer service when it comes to real estate. And no t-shirt shout out today. Instead, it's a hat shout out, and it's to Stetson hats because I wear my Stetson every week, and I need to thank them because Stetson hats, you make a great hat. I get complimented all the time. The hat's comfortable. I look good in it, and it's hard to make me look good in the hat. So I appreciate Stetson hats for doing that. Corey, the book is entitled Authentic Negotiating, and when I read this book, I almost did not put you on the show because I felt like you personally wrote this book to me. I thought I started reading it, and I went, ouch. Oh, ouch. Clarity, ouch. Detachment, I'm emotional, Corey. Detachment, ouch. Equilibrium, ouch. And then I went, holy cow, we all fall into the same thing when it comes to negotiating. And the fact of the matter is, we are in a constant mode, I believe, in negotiating, whether it is with, yes, Lisa Rotilli in New Jersey, a 14-year-old, or your spouse or significant other, or a business deal, or a real estate deal, Linda Craft and Team Realtors, or whatever it is, we are in constant negotiation, and doing it right is a challenge. True?
No question about it. And let me add to the fact that there is a lot of negotiating information and training out there that only focuses on the tactical level and leads people either astray or doesn't give them the deep inner work that they really need to be successful. So people, are challenged already, and then they sometimes get bad or surface advice on top of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things this is what I thought the book was going to be. I thought the book was going to be, oh, Corey is going to give me all sorts of tactics, right? I'm going to have these specific tactics that when I go into negotiation, this is what I got to do. And it wasn't that at all. What it is tactical, but not in this, oh, if you do A, this is going to happen in B. Instead, you said to me right out of the chute, first of all, you tell the story of a mentor that you had when you were a young attorney coming up, and the deal, it looks like it's about to fall apart, and he says, you know what, let's just table this until the next morning, and he puts his arm around you and says, hey kid, don't worry, it's going to close tomorrow. And he comes back, and it puts you on this path of wanting to discover how did he do that. Do you want to share that story a little bit more and talk about your path of why this is so important to negotiate, authentic negotiating?
Yeah, so I call him in the book Mike the Masterful, and I was in law school actually. I was working my second summer. So when you're fortunate enough to go to a good law school, you get a job in between your second and third year of law school, a summer job, and then hopefully they make you an offer to come in permanently, which is what happened with me. So I'm actually not even a lawyer yet. I'm a law student, and I'm working over the summer, and there's this big leverage buyout deal. It's $450 million where they're borrowing a bunch of money to buy this company. And it's late at night, and the negotiations have been going on for a while, and this deal's been around for months and months and months, and the deal's about to die. It's going to break down. In fact, the other attorney for one of the parties is literally screaming and banging the table, and the business guys who are buying the company, who will be bankrupt if this deal doesn't go through because they've leveraged their homes and everything they own to just pay the expenses on the deal, are pulling their hair out. And there were not too subtle jokes during breaks about, thank God that the windows didn't open in that building in Manhattan on the 52nd floor on Madison Avenue, so nobody would jump out. And there was only one guy who was just the calm in the middle of the storm. I mean, and that's this guy I call Mike, and he's sitting there, and everybody else is nervous or yelling or fretting, and he's just breathing very smoothly, and he's taking these pages off of a legal pad and just folding them up very calmly, like he has nothing better to do. and I'm of course he's the senior partner in my firm, and I'm a law student, so I'm watching him. I think when you're young, if you're smart, you watch the people who are experienced, and you try to figure out what they're doing. And I'm nervous, right? I'm the guy who's making copies and and proofreading stuff at that point. And I'm nervous, So like you said, he says, well, why don't we take a break and come back in the morning? I thought the deal was dead. In fact, I've never, it's funny. I've been practicing now law and advising on deals for 35 years, and I haven't seen this since the management team was buying the company actually fired their lawyers, the major law firm, in the middle of this negotiation because they were so upset with them about not able to get the deal done. Mike called this sort of truce and said, hey, listen, let's all go to bed. Let's resume in the morning. And I'm thinking the deal's dead. And then you're right. He put his arm around me and he said, don't worry about it, kid. This thing's going to close. So not only was he calm, but I was like, how does he see the future? I don't understand, And sure enough, by the time we got back together at 8 o'clock the next morning, and by the way, we didn't break till about 2 o'clock at night. Wow. So, somewhere between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., he had, reached out to the various parties individually, got everybody back on track. And you know what? The deal ended up closing the next day. And that was a big lesson for me.
Yeah, we're talking with Corey Kupfer, and the book is called Authentic Negotiating. It's absolutely, by the way, it's an outstanding book. I've dog-eared it like crazy. I've got yellow markers on every page, I think. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your favorite bookstore. It is an Amazon bestseller. And so you need to really get your copy of this book. This book is fabulously written. It's 128 pages long. But it is so good, and it's so chock full of things that you need to really become not just a better negotiator. I'm going to just say this, and I'm going to say this without shame. It's going to make you a better person. I'm just going to say it right now. This book, Authentic Negotiating, will make you a better person, and I'll tell you why. Chapter 2, he starts to get into the nuts and bolts of this authentic negotiating, and it is called CDE, and it is called Clarity, Detachment, and Equilibrium. And this is where I want to start this whole thing first of all, how did you come up with clarity, detachment, and equilibrium? And then let's walk people why each piece of that is so important.
No, it's really interesting, Jay. I'll share something that I don't know that I've shared on any interview before, which is that it was really like I was operating that way, but I didn't have it clearly defined like that until I was writing the book. And I tried to, I talk about this concept. I actually talk about it in the book in terms of the master, that story I was just telling, where people's sort of unconscious competence, like some of us, you get really good at something, but it's hard for you to break down how you do it or what the elements of it are. And the process of writing a book and also, doing the speaking, whatever, and doing trainings, it gets you actually clearer and clearer when you're trying to train somebody else on how you do something, on actually how you do it. Right?
So true.
Just having it be like natural. So whereas I applied these elements always for the last 30 years of my negotiating, what helped me distill it down and put it in this framework to be able to teach other people was actually talks I was doing, and then the process of bringing it into the book. And I realized this is the distinguishing factor. This is what makes me, not only me, but other like phenomenal, masterful negotiators successful. It's not, like you said earlier, that they learn some tactic or some counter tactic. That's not what makes the difference. It's these three elements, starting with clarity.
Yeah, let's talk about clarity, because it's clarity, detachment, and equilibrium is the CDE here. So when Corey Kupfer says, okay, clarity, and by the way, you bring up clarity no less than, I think, 50 times over and over, reminding us you got to have clarity, you got to have clarity. It's that important. So tell us what clarity is, and then why is that so important to be an authentic negotiator?
Yeah, it really is the base of everything, Jay, as you sort of alluded. And also, as you alluded, as people should think about this in negotiating, but clarity in life, okay, is also, I mean, it's a universal principle, but let's apply it to negotiating, right? So I can't tell you how many times, and I do negotiations that range from smaller stuff up to really, tens and hundreds of millions, of dollars at stake. And I can't tell you how many times, even on multi-million-dollar deals, that clients go in, or you see the other side go into negotiation without crystal clarity on exactly what they want. So you want to get clear on why are you even in this negotiation? Let's start there, right?
Right.
Then second of all, exactly what's acceptable to you and what's not acceptable to you, what's going to work and what's not going to work. If you don't do that, then first of all, you have no base. You have no place to design a negotiating strategy from. You have no way to know when to stop, when to start, what to offer.
Right.
You have no way to know when to walk away from the negotiation. That's not from a place of upset, anger, ego, your emotions. That comes from an objective place of clarity. So without the clarity, you're in trouble.
Yeah, one of the things that you say about clarity, and I need to do this up front, is first of all, you say research. Do your homework. Know everything so that you can be as clear as you can, not only about what you want and not necessarily, outcomes too, but also be very clear about who you're negotiating with. Because you've got to know everything you can about who the person you're negotiating. And I don't care if this is a 14-year-old. You go, well, I know my 14-year-old. Yeah, but why is your 14-year-old not want to go to bed or do her homework? right? I mean, get clear on that. Why is it? And then what is it that you ultimately want? This is the part that I just thought was genius, is that so often we just forget, what is it that I want, right? Because it may not be the money, right? If we're in a business deal, that may not be the clarity that I'm looking for. I've got to ultimately be very clear on what it is I want. And I thought that was very helpful to me, is getting clear, because then once you, like as you alluded to, once I'm clear, now I've got to learn to do this thing that I don't do sometimes very well, because I'm such a competitor. I am so competitive, Corey, and I hate to lose. I hate it, right? And I detach. I got to talk about detachment, what it is, and what do we got to do?
Yeah, this is really tough for a lot of people, but it's the single biggest distinction I've seen in master negotiators, is that they're attached to the outcome. What does that mean? That means that if I'm negotiating a deal or anything with, let's say, with Jay, right? I should have a preference. I get my deal done with Jay. I mean, why am I bothering wasting any time unless I have a preference that we do something together? But ultimately, I need to be detached to the outcome. I need to be equally okay if we do a deal or not do a deal. Now, if I've gotten 100% clear on my clarity process and I know exactly what will work for me and what won't, then in my negotiation with Jay, we will either get there or we won't.
Right.
And if we do, great, we do a deal. If we don't, then we don't do a deal. It's binary. It's very simple, right? We meet my objectives in the deal and it works for me, or it doesn't.
Right.
And here's the key thing, and this is where, the emotion comes in, or hopefully we take it out, is that if we can't get there, if I can't get there with Jay, it doesn't mean Jay's a bad guy, or he's an idiot, or he's stubborn, or he's stupid, or he doesn't know, or blah, blah, any of these things that we get into. All it means is that Jay's objectives in this particular negotiation and my objectives don't meet right now. Right. That's all it means.
Right.
And it means that we don't do a deal right now, and I might do a deal with Jay later. I may never do a deal with Jay. I may not meant to be, maybe I'm meant to do a deal with someone else. And listen, it's a cliche, but you got to remember it. There's only one thing worse than not getting a deal done, and that's doing a bad deal. And if you do a deal that doesn't meet your objectives, it's a bad deal.
Okay, so this is the part where I loved. There's so much of the book I love, and I knew I was going to love you because you're so authentic and so real. And but so I have this thing that my wife gave me. She gave me a Q-tip, and she told me, you know what Q-tip stands for? Quit taking it personally. And as soon as you said detach, I pulled out that Q-tip and I looked at the Q-tip and I went, doggone it, he's got a Q-tip in his hand and he's saying to me, quit taking it personally, because the deal has nothing to do with me personally. The deal is the deal. It's not about, it's not about me. It's not about the other person I'm negotiating with. It's not personal. It is just a deal. And I think getting to that point, while it sounds easy on the surface, it's not always that easy, right?
No, listen, it's, I don't want to make it sound like, I'm going to list 3 elements and, once you know them, it's, you're done, right? I always talk about there's a body of internal work, right? And this is true in life. I mean, Jay, you open your show brilliantly, right, with these 4 things that you give people to measure, right? And it's not like, they say, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I know those things and now I'm good, right? It's a body of work they need to do to get that score up from the 3 to the 4 or the 8 to the 8.5 or whatever it is. What we're really talking about here is a body of emotional, spiritual, intellectual, work. Maybe physical out of your 4 things is the least involved. But I'll tell you, I've been in some marathon negotiations where physical even comes, the stamina comes into play. So
absolutely.
Even that one, can come into play. But yeah, I mean, it's really, listen. I don't, the funny part is that I do negotiating trainings in the corporate environment, I do speaking, et cetera, and everybody wants to negotiate better. And, that's easy access. Even the word authentic has become, I'll be frank, a corporate buzzword that people like, even if they don't particularly know exactly what it means. So that all works. But really what we're talking about here is transformation, right? To be a great negotiator, it's not just about learning, doing external research. There's this body of internal work you need to do. And to be able to come into a negotiation from a place that doesn't come from your ego, doesn't come from scarcity, doesn't come from fear, right? That's the work. That's the work that makes the difference.
We're talking with Corey Kupfer. He is author of this outstanding book, Authentic Negotiating. By the way, available Amazon everywhere. We're listening to and maybe watching A New Direction. And by the way, Oak 93.5. Thank you for listening. Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and Sundays a replay at 10 a.m. You're listening to Corey Kupfer talk about his book, Authentic Negotiating. And he's brought to you by Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. They have literally helped thousands of clients in the sale and purchase of businesses. They're internationally known, and when it's time to sell your business, contact the professionals at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more by going to inline.com. That's ENLIGN.com. They have been a sponsor of A New Direction since the very, very beginning, and so we're very grateful to them. And also to Linda Kraft and team. You know what? They're available anywhere in the world to help you find the right expert to help you sell your home or buy your home. And if you happen to live in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Research Triangle Park area, why not just drop in right there at 7300 Six Forks Road? And why not find out why they're called the legends of customer service when it comes to real estate? And you can learn more about Linda Kraft and her team by going to lindakraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back with Corey Kupfer and his book, Authentic Negotiating. So, Corey, the third element in this piece of CDE is equilibrium. And this was, I think, your superstar Mike probably demonstrated equilibrium greater. I think that was a great piece to what he distributed. Talk about what equilibrium is. How do we get there?
Sure. So equilibrium is that ability to stay calm, be centered, not get thrown off during the negotiation process, right? So, and here's the thing, they go in order, right? Because you got to get that clarity first, so you know what you're even aligned with. You have to stay detached. But some people are able to do that work, but then what happens is they get into the negotiation and they get thrown off, right? Somebody pulls a tactic on them. Somebody tells them their company's not worth half that. Somebody says something they find to be off-putting or insulting, or maybe none of that happens, but they think they might lose the deal and they get afraid, or they get into a place of scarcity, right? So something comes up for them that throws them off their equilibrium. They lose their center. And inevitably what happens when you do that is then you lose your detachment, right? Because you gotten thrown off. And often what happens is you get separated from your clarity. You can't even remember if you're upset or you're thrown off, you don't even remember what you wanted, what you didn't want when you were accepted, what was acceptable. So that ability to not only come in with clarity and detachment, but then to stay calm, to be able to listen, not to get thrown off, not to take it personally, the Q-tip thing, right? That is the equilibrium portion of it, and that's the key third piece.
So here's the thing that first of all, you spoke to me. First of all, I know that any time that I don't care what I'm doing. Even if I'm negotiating at something silly, right, with my wife, okay, about where we're going to go for dinner, let's say. I mean, the truth of the matter is I need to be clear and I need to detach myself from that outcome and I need to just stay calm. Why is it with our spouses in particular or significant others do we get so emotional over something so stupid? I don't understand it, but we do, especially in negotiating something. I don't know, maybe that doesn't happen to you because you're a professional at this, but this can happen to me, quite honestly. But then I find that there are, and you talk about this in chapter 3, there are 6 reasons why we have a tendency to go south on our CDE, right? I mean, the reason why we go south, and I'm just going to read these, and let's just talk about maybe all of them or a few of them. Lack of preparation, ego, fear, rigidity, getting emotional, losing objective, and lack of integrity. And I want to talk about, because I can really, really relate, this is how I can get off track on some of these, right? Lack of preparation, I think you probably run across that more in a business context. Am I right than you do like when you're negotiating with your wife?
Well, I got to tell you something. Yes, obviously, clearly there's a lot more probably external preparation in terms of the research, internal preparation in terms of, getting clarity, for example, is a preparation, right, technique, right, to make sure that you get clarity. But even in a situation with my wife, The truth is, if I am not ready, if something just comes up in the spur of the moment, and I haven't had a chance to think about it, right? Take into account not only what I want, but also maybe what's the best way to approach this, not the way I'm triggered to in the moment.
Right.
I'm probably going to be in worse shape if it comes up in the moment. And frankly, despite being a professional negotiator and training people on this, and I do think I do better, I'm still human. And I always say this to people, I'm still human. Even in the business negotiation, occasionally I get thrown off. And certainly, I think our intimate relationships are the ultimate mirror, in our lives. Right. And I think, frankly, there's a lot of ways where it's even more challenging in those situations to do it. And the biggest mistake that I've made is, as opposed to saying in the moment, hey, why don't we talk about this a little later, and having some time to breathe and think about it and get grounded and say, hey, what's my best approach that's not going to trigger her or trigger me? Right. You get into it in the moment, and that's where you run into trouble. And I've made that mistake.
Yeah. Well, who hasn't? If you're in a relationship long enough, you're going to, right? And which may lead to the number two. And I think this is a big reason. I really, really do. And I can sometimes trap into this, and I think a lot of people do, and I don't even think they really realize it, is that their ego gets in the way. Talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shows up in a number of ways. Well, I'll hit two of them. I mean, one is related to your conversation about don't make it personal, right? One definition of ego is this view of who we are, of how we think of ourselves, right? And we don't want to lose, right? We want to win. We don't want to lose. We don't want to feel that we haven't accomplished something and whatever. And if we do, sometimes we get reactive. And then the other part of ego is sort of that strong, blustery, like, who are you kind of thing. And none of that makes any sense in a negotiation. Whether it's that blustery thing or whether it comes up. I mean, here's another thing. It's with the ego self-identity. This comes up with a lot of people, and I've had a number of discussions with experts who deal with women, and I deal with women a lot. Not owning your value is an ego thing. Like, if you can't own your value, that's something where your ego sees you as less than. Right. So we need to avoid all that stuff, right? No matter what kind of negotiation you're going into, whether it's with a bigger play on the other side, the one thing I always say is you wouldn't be at the table with them unless they were interested in something you have. Right. So don't overplay your cards, but don't undervalue yourself either. Right. Get to that quiet place and don't let that emotion and ego come out.
Yeah, but ego's hard. Pride gets in the way, and pride is a tough one. Sure. I mean, we want to look good. We want to be liked sometimes, or you talk about those things. Sometimes we want to get liked, and sometimes, my favorite, because I grew up learning this one, is I got to be right. And on page 100, you talk about the story of, you don't have to be right. So, right. So, which is so true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of my favorite things I love to say is, would you rather be right or would you rather be effective?
Right. Yeah, and that's true. Here's the big one, and I really want you to go off and pontificate on this one, because I really think this is a powerful one, because the word is fear, and there's so many levels of it. So I'm going to let you run on this one, and I am not going to interrupt. I want you to run through and tell the people about how fear is such a huge reason why negotiations fail, because there's a lot to it.
Yeah, there is. So there's fear of losing. We just talked about this need to win, right? So you're afraid that you're going to lose. You're afraid that you're going to fail, right? People have that all the time. And if you go into a negotiation afraid of losing, afraid of failing, you're in a lot of trouble. Here's the thing. Let me say this. It's going to apply to everything I'm going to say about fear and actually some of the other stuff. People can sense when you're afraid, right? They don't even have to be master negotiators. Like, we've been in a situation where you can tell when somebody's not comfortable or afraid or whatever, and that's always going to hurt you. So doing that body internal work in advance to get rid of that fear of failure, or it could be fear of success, right? How many times have we seen this? And this is in life, as well, not only in negotiating, where we don't really, and again, if we've done the work to get clarity, we've done all the stuff that I talk about, you're in much better shape not to do this. But we think we want a deal. Maybe we're acting out of ego. Maybe I see this in the entrepreneurial community a lot, right? Everybody's got to grow. You got to scale. That's the entrepreneurial, mantra. So maybe you're acting out of some external thing, but deep down, you're afraid that if you scale, if you're successful in that growth, that it's going to adversely affect your lifestyle, that you're not going to spend enough time with your kids, that you're not going to be able to handle it, that the stress is going to be too big, whatever it is. Well, you're going to sabotage yourself, on that fear of success. Obviously on the other side, if you think you're going to fail, there's all kinds of research that shows that our outlook of things, right, the way we look at it affects the outcome. The other big one is fear of the unknown. Some people, and you got to know yourself, like this is a self-awareness conversation. I give an example in the book where there was a client who approached me. They literally had a contract opportunity that would more than double their business, and their business was decent already. So this was life-changing. This was life-changing. And all I heard from this client consistently was, everything that they were afraid of. That they did, what happens if this happens? What if happens if that? I'm afraid that we're not going to be handled. And what I realized was, knowing this person, that their fear was of the unknown. It actually wasn't about what could go wrong. It was about the fact that there was so much they couldn't even think about what might go wrong. So I gave him an exercise that said, I want you to go back and actually literally write down everything bad that could happen. Now, by the way, if I sensed the client had a fear of failure, I wouldn't have had him do that exercise. It would have been terrible, right?
Right.
It would have been the worst. I would have actually sent him further down his fear of failure. But because this client, I was clear that it just, and I knew him from before, and he was sort of a very analytical guy that needed to know all of the factors. So I gave him an exercise to write down everything that could go bad. And he thought I was crazy, frankly. And he came back to me and he said that to me. He said, Corey, I thought you were crazy giving me this exercise, but I trust you. We've known each other for a long time. You've represented me for a long time. And I did it. And you know what? I have all this list of horrible things that could happen, how we might not be able to handle a business, and how, I don't have the right personnel in place and have to get them in place, all this stuff. He said, and I got a long list, and you think that would scare me, but actually I'm ready to go now.
Wow.
Because you see, his fear was of the unknown.
Right.
We made it known.
Right.
Once it was known, he said, oh, you know what? If that happens, I could do this. If that happens, I can do this. If that happens, I can do that. I can handle that. Well, if that one happens, maybe we're really in trouble, but I think the odds of that one happening are very slim. So we made it known for him. So you got to determine, what is your fear? Is it of the unknown? Is it of failure? Is it of looking bad or letting someone else down? Right? I've seen classic. This is not the only situation, but I've seen situations, next generation owner of a business. And so much of what's driving that person is, fear or being afraid of letting, dad down. Right?
Yeah. No.
And they get paralyzed by that.
Well, fear is a killer. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the fear is. It kills us as humans. Yep. Because once it shuts us down emotionally, it'll shut us down mentally. And then it closes us off, and fear changes us physically. So you talk about tells in the book, right? Which tells is the poker equivalent, is of, being able to read your face and body language, basically, is what it is in the poker world. So we call tells. But you've done this long enough, and I've as a psychological professional and having to be in situations as a forensic person, having to read the person across from me that I'm about to do some testing with, is you learn to read that body language, and you can see fear in a body language.
Yeah.
And once you show fear in negotiating, you're done. I'm sorry.
You're done.
It is very easy for someone to pounce on you. This is why, people when I'm going to say this to parents. I think this is going to, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, Corey. But I think sometimes parents get so afraid that their child is going to withdraw their love from them that they don't negotiate from a true place of legitimate authority, a legitimate, authentic, loving authority. They try to They try to be a dictatorship, and what happens is when they negotiate with their children, they actually are afraid that if they do something, what happens is that their child will withdraw from them, and so they start to show the fear. The child senses it, doesn't even know they're sensing it, and what happens is the child takes advantage.
No question. It's 100% on, and that happens with children, it happens in business. People, if somebody, I've studied this a lot, right? And there's now brain science on it. There's all kinds of science that's come out that's confirmed stuff that even 10 years ago we didn't know, right? And you talked about tone of voice, you talked about body language. You know, there are courses out there that try to help you hide that on a tactical level. Oh, don't look up, don't do this, don't do that, which is ridiculous. The ones that try to teach you to read someone else's are useful, but the ones that try to teach you to hide stuff, you can't hide it. No. There's science that's called, there are microfacial expressions, right? Our faces have, I don't know the number, 40-some-odd muscles that combine into hundreds of combinations. And we give off signals. And I happen to believe in energy. I think if you study quantum physics, everything is energy. When we were kids growing up, Jay, we learned like that the table was matter, and then there was now we know everything's energy in a different vibration, right? That's scientifically proven. That's not just Eastern conscious, spiritual philosophy. That's scientifically proven. So I believe we do give off energy. But even if you don't believe that, right, there's microfacial expressions, there's body language, there's all this stuff. We're constantly giving off signals. And every professional out there, I'm not even talking about in negotiation, but in psychology, all that kind of stuff, agree that, the far majority of the information that is transferred between people is not verbal.
Oh, man. So we know that.
You can't control it.
We have known that, Corey. Listen, I went to grad school in psychology. My master's and my doctoral work was in psychology. And we have known this for decades, that the body will tell us far more than what your lips will tell us. I mean, that's just the idea that somehow that your lips are betraying you is so wrong. Your body language will tell us more than whatever your words will say, because you can look at me right in the eye and say whatever you want to say, but your body's going to give you away. Your blink or lack of blinking will give you away. The direction of your eyes, whether it's down to the right or down to the left or up to the right or up to the left or straight right or straight left or looking straight at me, tell me far more than, I tell people all the time, you show me a pinky twitch, I can tell you all sorts of things depending on the conversation, what a pinky twitch will tell you. Because it's and then we have these things called, there's a lot of studies now on mirror neurons, right? That, maybe one of the explanations why when one person yawns, the next person next to you yawns, right? In that what happens is there's this thing that happens, maybe it's a vibration thing, that our neurons are actually doing some sort of, vibration that is the reason why we're mirroring and picking up signals that we don't even understand half the time. So there's a lot of research.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I say to people, listen, please don't do, you don't have to do mind negotiating work. There's other good work out there, but don't do the work that tries to tell you that you can control the signals you're putting out. As opposed to trying to mask the fear you have, work on getting rid of the fear. Work on the underlying issue. Don't take the pill for the symptom. Work on the underlying disease.
And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that with Corey Kupfer. He's the author of this amazing, I'm telling you, this book is deep. This book's going to take you deep, so be ready. So if you're ready to actually look at yourself and go deep, this book, Authentic Negotiating, is going to work on you. All right. It's more than this is going to help you become a better negotiator. It's going to help you become a better person. It's going to make you more, yes, we use the word authentic a lot, but I'm going to tell you it's going to make you a more authentic person, because you're not going to play games with people and try to manipulate them. You're going to try to actually negotiate them once you figure out your clarity and once you understand how to detach and get your equilibrium. And Authentic Negotiating is brought to you today by Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. They have been our sponsors from the very, very, very beginning. They represent profitable, privately held companies with gross annual revenues in excess of $1 million. They deliver the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with complete confidentiality. That is their registered trademark. And you can learn more by going to Enline.com. Just check out Jeff Snell and his folks at Enline. It's ENLIGN.com. They're outstanding. They have been, since the very beginning we started the show, some 60 shows ago, they have been a sponsor, and we are so grateful to them. And also to Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Wherever you're at in the world, they can help you find the best expert to help you sell your home or buy a home. I don't care where that is. Just give them a call or call them go to their website or their Facebook page and look them up and ask them a question. They'll help you. This is the reason why they've been known as the legends of customer service, because they have somebody who takes the phones home 24 hours a day. So they're always available to you. So give them a ring as well. And you can learn more by going to lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back talking with Corey Kupfer, outstanding book, Authentic Negotiating, Clarity, Detachment, and Equilibrium, the 3 keys to true negotiating success and how to achieve them. And, we're in the middle of talking with Corey about the 6 reasons negotiation fails. We've talked about also prior to this, just kind of as a recap, in case you just joined us, on Oak 93.5 or wherever you're at. We've talked about clarity and detachment and equilibrium, what that means and how to get there. But we're talking about in these 6 reasons why negotiations fail. And one of the things we've talked about is ego, and we're certainly hitting on fear, certainly. But Corey has just made a comment that you can't mask these things because you've got to do something else. And Corey really hits on this really clearly. So Corey, let's talk about, we know that we can't mask them. So what do we got to do to overcome when we've got fear or our ego? What do we do?
So the first thing I say to people, and I give a specific tool in the book that I call CPR, which we talk about separately, I'm sure, that will help with that. But the first thing I say to people is, listen, what do you do in life to get yourself centered? Right? Let's start there. Right. For some people, they meditate or pray. For some people, they go out for a run. For some people, they take a walk in nature. Right. Some people are the kind of people where they call their best friend or mentor and bounce stuff off them. Some people are analytical. This is sort of the example I gave with the guy who was afraid of the unknown. Where they have to really sort of create their spreadsheet and lists and analyze it all out. Whatever. Like, hopefully, you know yourself well enough. I'm not even talking about indigo, just in life. What is it that you do when you need to get reconnected, recentered, right? Let's start there. That's the first thing you should do. And you should do that, frankly, if you're going to go into a tough negotiation and the thing that clears your head is going out for a run, make the space to go out for a run if you can before, right. Before you go to a negotiation, or give yourself, the space to sit down and meditate for a half hour, or, whatever it is for you. So that's the first thing I'll say, because you know yourself the best and you know what gets you in that place of calm and center. And then if you do that and then add this CPR framework that I give you, I think you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I want to get to CPR, and we will here. We'll go through it here a little bit. But here's where I thought the book was so genius and spoke to me so well. So I'm going to be personal here a little bit, and vulnerable. Because what you really said is it's got to come from the core, basically the core center of who you are. None of this is going to happen until you change at the heart of who you are. You can learn all the scripts you can in the world. You can learn all the pieces that you are in the world and get scripted and have all the right words. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't honestly believe them inside of who you are, none of this is going to make a bit of a difference, because then you're just going to mask it. Did I get that right as a summary?
That's 100% on the mark, which is why, frankly, I'll be straight. There are a lot of people out there who are much more ready to go to a seminar on some tactic or counter-tactic than to do this work, because this is not, even though I have the top 6 reasons negotiations fail and I have these 3 things, clarity, detachment, and equilibrium, it is not a 3-step or 6-step book and boom, you're ready to go. But if you're really committed to getting mastery in this, and listen, mastery in negotiations, the benefits of that in your business and your life are amazing. The people who master negotiation have levels of success, not only in business, but in other parts of their life that are way beyond everybody else, because it's such a crucial tool. So if you're willing to do the work, do the inner body of work that I talk about, the benefits are amazing. It just takes a little bit more than learning 6 steps or 6 tips, or Right. So you got to be willing to do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring up one particular topic that you touched on that hit me really, really between the eyes. By the way, the whole book did. Okay, because I'm a little bruised. Going to be honest with you from the book, because you really knocked me around, but it was good for me. And it was, You talk about people's relationship with money and in the book. And I don't think people understand that sometimes we have a bad relationship with money, whether it's because we didn't grow up with it, whether it's because our parents didn't train us very well, whatever the case may be. Sometimes we don't have a very good relationship with money. And because of that, we don't know our own value and we don't know our own worth. And by the way, I'm going to be totally transparent and say I've struggled with this, okay, throughout my career. I really have. And do you want to talk about that a little bit, that relationship and how that relates?
Yeah, it's such a crucial piece, and this applies obviously outside negotiating as well. And I've done a lot. Listen, I'll be transparent as well. I grew up in a lower middle class family. We always had food on the table. We weren't poor, but we didn't go out to dinner. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't. It was paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And so I had that relationship. Like, money's scarce, right? You have to really watch it carefully. I had earlier in my career a lot of that. Who are you to? There were some low middle class kids from Brooklyn. Who are you to charge this or want this? So I've been through it myself. And by the way, I want to say up front, people who think it only comes from that end don't know. There are people who grow up with with millions and billions, right, and they have their own issues, right?
Right.
They're constantly in fear of people taking the money or cheating them, right, or not showing it or showing it too much. There's everybody's dynamic around money is a lot of people have unhealthy dynamics around money. So resolving that. So I'll give you an example. What I always say is this, and this is great. The best way to illustrate it is a great story I learned from Jack Canfield that I relay in the book that I heard on one of his talks. And he talked about when he was a young teacher and he was doing some speaking on the side. This is way before Chicken Soup for the Soul and all, the best-selling book series in history. And he was charging, I think this was in the 70s, he was charging like $400 to give a talk. And he spoke to one of his colleagues who gave sort of similar talks. And his colleague, they were talking about whatever, and his colleague mentioned something about $1,200 for a fee he got. And Jack's thinking, $1,200? How does this guy get $1,200? I'm at least as good, probably better than him. And I'm only charging $400, right? So he says, wow, I guess maybe I should be charging more. But the thing is this, and this relates to business, right? One of the things we do when we look at how to charge is we look at what our competition, what other people in the industry are charging, right? And we say,
right,
okay, my product or service is as good as that. I should charge that.
Right.
Here's the thing. If you can't own that, if you can't really own your value in that, you're not going to get it. Because of the same thing that Jay and I were talking about earlier about fear and all these things. You give off these signals, right? And if you don't believe that you deserve it, odds are your customer or client is not going to believe you deserve it either.
Right.
So what Jack did was Jack said, all right. So the next person came along and they said, what do you charge? And he couldn't bring himself to say $1,200, but he said $800. And the guy said, no problem. Jack said, let me ask you a question, just out of curiosity. What would have been a problem? and the guy said, well, we had $1,500 in the speaker budget, right?
Right.
So Jack honored the $800 because that's what he quoted.
Right.
But the next time somebody asked him, what do you charge? He said $1,500. They said, we got $1,200. He said, I'll take it. So the point is this: there's a body of work to do. What I always say to people is this: whether it's hourly rate, whether it's project fee, whether it's however you charge, you need to consistently do the inner work to be able to own your value. Right.
Right.
I am not cheap for what I charge. What I know is I give value at or beyond what I charge.
Right.
And that's what has me be able to stand in the number, because I know I'm going to give that client value at or beyond the number that I'm charging them. And what I do is when I look at raising rates or setting rates, yes, I do that external research, take a look at what other people are doing, but then I get quiet. Then I sit down and I say, okay, what is the number that I can own that feels right to me? That when I say it to a client, I'm going to be 100% confident that we can provide value, that I can own that. And what I say to people is, listen, if the market is at $500 an hour, just to use an easy number, and you think you deserve that, but intellectually, but on a physical, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, you can't own that, and you can only own $300 an hour, you're better off asking for $300 an hour,
right,
because you'll get it, than $500 an hour because you won't, and then do the internal work to move up your ability to own it from 3 to 350 to 400, etc.
Right. No, you're right. No, this is the point. What I got from your book too was, yeah, it'd be great to charge X, but the truth is I'm comfortable charging Y, and I need to move up. So I got to learn to do that slowly, and that was one thing you talk about. Jack Canfield was he had to do that kind of slowly over the course of time, and I think that was a really great lesson. We're talking with Corey Kupfer, author of the book Authentic Negotiating, and we're running out of time here. And so Corey, I want to get to CPR, and I know we're going to do this really briefly. So here's what we're going to do: we're going to tease people with CPR. I'm going to let you tease them with it because they're going to have to go and purchase the book, is what they're going to have to do to get the in-depths. But let's tease them a little bit with what CPR briefly is and what that means.
Sure. So CPR stands for context, purpose, and results. And there's a process that I tell people in detail how to go. There's actually 2 chapters on it in the book. One gives an example of a real deal situation in the CPR that I advise people on, and then the next is basically how to do it yourself. And taking them in reverse order, the R is results, and that's the piece almost everybody does if they do any kind of preparation. What are the results you want to get out of the negotiation or out of that particular negotiating session? And then then we get to the part that fewer people do. The next one is the P is purpose, which is what is the underlying purpose? What do you want to get out of that? What's the reason for being in that negotiation? And in the example I give in the book, just super quickly, they were in a miserable situation, in a business situation where they hated the people, et cetera, and they wanted out. Well, they had to get clear that their purpose was to get their freedom back. Like that was at the core of what they wanted. They want to get their freedom back. And when you keep that in mind, then you're much better off. And then the C is context, which is who do you need to be to achieve that purpose? So in that example, if their default context, because you always have a context, it's sort of like culture in a company. They say it's by design of default. You always have a context. And if your context is, I hate these people, they're jerks, they're idiots, we need to get away from them, what are the odds of you getting a negotiated deal done? So you have to shift your context to something that's much more empowering, that allows you to achieve the purpose, which will allow you to achieve the results. I know we don't have a lot of time to go in. This is a very deep process. It gets you prepared to be great at a negotiation. You actually write it out. You memorize your context and your purpose. You keep a copy of it with you. If you start to get thrown off in the negotiation, you step out of the negotiation and you reconnect to your CPR. Like I said, there's 2 chapters in the book that go into this in detail. It's one of the most powerful tools I know. And by the way, footnote, this is something that I use in my life, not just for negotiations. I do CPRs for my relationship. I do CPRs for my business. I do CPRs for my life. It's the most powerful tool I know. Awesome.
We're with author, attorney, strategist, entrepreneur, authentic negotiator, authentic deal maker. The guy is fantastic. You've heard him. The book is available bookstores. It's available Amazon. It is by Corey Kupfer is his name, and the book is titled Authentic Negotiating. Corey, I can't believe that an hour has gone this fast. I feel like we just got on the phone and it just zoomed by. I hope that you and I, by the way, I want to just say this before I do this because I neglected to do this. Corey has a podcast. Do you mind if I pump your podcast a little bit and tell people about the Fueling Deals podcast? If you go to CoreyKupfer.com, that's CoreyKupfer.com, you can find all about Corey and also his podcast. It's called Fueling Deals Podcast. Corey, tell a little bit about what Fueling Deals Podcast is about.
So it's directed towards entrepreneurs, business owners, and executives who are looking to grow their company. And every company focuses on organic growth, right? How do we get more sales? How do we get more marketing? How do we provide great products and services? Only a small percentage of companies grow through deals, and that's what it's about. And it's really blowing up the myth that you need to be a major company with major capital to do deals, because there are all kinds of deals: affiliate relationships, joint ventures, strategic alliances, licensing deals. I mean, you name it. So we have deal makers of whether they're entrepreneurs or they're professionals who are in the space that give you their experience in growing their business through deals, and it's a great way to do it. And check it out. We do one every week. We have guests, and then I do a solo cast once a month.
Awesome. So, Corey, what I ask every one of my guests to do, and I think you've been on the show, like I think your friend, you're my friend Ralph Peterson, who's
Sure.
been on the show a couple times. I always ask my guests before they leave, I say, if you could leave people with, the show's called A New Direction because we try to help people find a new direction in their life or their career or their business or relationships. If you could leave people a new direction based on authentic negotiating, what would Corey Kupfer say?
I would say be willing to do in negotiating and in life the internal body of work that it takes to grow and to have self-awareness and to understand yourself, and focus a lot less on those external tactical level things. And that, again, applies not only in negotiating, but in life.
Awesome. His name is Corey Kupfer. The book is entitled Authentic Negotiating. It's available at Amazon bookstores near you. Go to CoreyKupfer.com. That's CoreyKupfer.com. You can find him. Look for his Facebook page. Look for him on Instagram. Look for him on Twitter. Look for him on LinkedIn. I started following him initially. I didn't even know we were going to become friends. And by chance, he had a book. And the next thing I know, we've become friends. And I want to stay friends with him forever because he's really spoken into my life, because this book is more than a tactical book. This is a book that will change your life. It is called Authentic Negotiating. Corey, thank you again for your time and so much. I appreciate you. I'm really grateful. And folks, I'm grateful for you sticking around and listening to the show. And to all the folks in 93.5, thank you for listening to the show on Thursday or Sunday. We appreciate you very much. And all the people around the world, thank you, Brazil, for joining part of the 25 to 30 different countries now that we are being downloaded across the world, and we are so grateful for you wherever you're at. And you know what I say every week, you know what, be inspired, because when you're inspired, that means that you will inspire someone else, and in turn, they will inspire others as well. And if we all do that, that can make this world an amazing place. I will see you next week with another amazing guest. You know what I say. Ciao, everybody.
Time has come for a new direction. Yeah, yeah. New direction. Yeah, yeah. When you lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense, you got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your time to find a new direction, a brand new day, a new direction. Things are gonna change. You can find the strength to go a different way. Yeah, the time has come. Your dreams will take you places you have never been before. Find your passion, find your strength.